So the starter's gun has been fired a year late. It had been hoped that these games would mark the beginning of a victory celebration over COVID-19. It's anything but, as Australia and the rest of the world continue to fight a losing battle. So it's over to our athletes to strive for success.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And the Tokyo Olympics are finally underway. 1 year late thanks to a global pandemic and despite a local backlash that threatened to cancel them. And with no spectators at the Games, there weren't many more to see Australia getting the gong to host the 2032 extravaganza.
That the Games of the 35th Olympiad are awarded to Brisbane, Australia.
But we're glad to say the PM had a camera crew at the lodge to record him jumping in the air to celebrate the news. But in the eyes of some Queenslanders and many in the media, Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk was far from a conquering hero.
The Premier boarded a flight for the controversial trip late last night.
The Queensland Premier and her controversial arrival in Tokyo.
She's copped a lot of heat about this trip.
It has been a very controversial trip for the Queensland Premier.
Anastasia Palaszczuk being here has ruffled a few feathers.
So, why were those feathers ruffled by the Premier's Tokyo trip? Take your pick from her decision in June to get the Pfizer jab instead of AstraZeneca, to flying out of Australia during a COVID outbreak when so many Queenslanders overseas and interstate cannot fly in.
More than 55,000 people had signed an online petition calling for the Premier to be banned from leaving Australia, saying that she shouldn't be allowed to go after she called for a number of international arrivals to be capped.
That petition, now with 133,000 signatures, got plenty of play on Sky News, where hosts and guests were busy stoking up the controversy.
You're not more important, Premier. You've said there's a crisis, stay here and manage it.
She doesn't give a damn about the rest of the country or the people of Queensland. It's all about her being on the world stage.
This is gross. It's in the middle of a pandemic. She's got Delta within the state.
And also on Sky, Paul Murray was offering his infantile impression of a leader he despises.
I have to go to the Olympics. I've really got to go. Because it's Olympics. I've really got to go. Mr. Coates says I have to go to Japan. I have to go because it's really important. So she decided to stomp her foot like the giant toddler she is.
And just who is as a toddler there. Palaszczuk's hard line on borders certainly left her exposed, and she can hardly complain about the criticism. But aside from Sky, not even the Courier Mail tried to argue the Premier should have phoned it in.
It's no junket, it's critical. Get on that plane, Premier.
The paper took that advice from the wily Australian Olympics Committee President John Coates, who insisted Palaszczuk should come to Japan.
It's been made very clear by John Coates that it would be a disaster if the head of Queensland did not go.
And when all the media pressure persuaded the Premier she had to skip the opening ceremony and hide in her Tokyo hotel room, it was Coates again who put the boot in on the podium.
You are going to the opening ceremony. I'm still the Deputy Chair of the Candidate Leadership Group. No, none of you are staying behind and hiding in your rooms, all right? Never been to an opening ceremony at Olympic Games, have you? You don't know the protocols. I think it's part of it's a very important lesson for everyone here.
Cringy? You bet. Disrespectful? That too. And arrogant to boot.
Wow. What was that about?
The ABC's Michael Rowland tweeted his video reaction, which has now been viewed more than 1 million times, to kick off a story that went around the world. But in the ensuing storm, Coates insisted his intervention had been taken out of context, and he was actually saving the Premier from being bullied by the media, at her request, telling the Australian today...
She said to me, "Give me a hand, John, will you?" So I did. She's my very good friend. I might have done it too crudely, but I thought if I did it crudely, I would be taking the hit for her.
And putting the heat on himself instead. What a guy. So the Premier has now returned home and is in hotel quarantine after attending an opening ceremony she vowed not to attend on a trip her critics insisted she did not have to make. But Brisbane now has the 2032 Olympics and there's only 4,016 sleeps to go. Let's hope COVID is over by then. But now to the PM's rocky week, which started with the pundits asking, where the bloody hell are you?
Where's the Prime Minister? What role is the federal government playing in this?
Where the hell's the Prime Minister? He's got half his country locked down. We haven't heard from him for a week. The one question is, where is the Prime Minister?
And the answer? He was in lockdown at the Lodge. And by Wednesday morning, he was answering his critics by doing 5 back-to-back radio interviews. But one stood out from the others. And like so many FM chats, it started with a tickle.
Scott, do you have an Uber Eats account? Like, you know, if you're not happy with the quarantine food, can you order something in?
I'm sure I could, but I haven't had to as yet.
But by mid-interview, the tickle turned to wrestle as Kiss FM's Jace Hawkins put directly to the PM a question about the rollout that other journalists have danced around.
Can you honestly say to me that the government's taken accountability? Like, I've never heard the word sorry. Guys, you know what? Sorry. We did screw it up, but we're getting it right now.
And did the PM say the magic word? Not really.
Yes, the government is accountable for this, and I'm accountable for this. That's why we take the accountability by fixing the problems and getting it right.
So Jace tried again.
Can you just say sorry, Jace? It'll make me feel so much better, and then I feel like I can move on.
He won't.
Well, what we're doing is fixing the problems and getting on with it.
And clearly hoping for third time lucky, Jace tried yet again.
Scott, I'd even take a my bad, Jace. Just my bad, Jace. We're moving on.
We're fixing the problems and getting on with it, guys. That's what people need. We need to put the...
I got one for you. What does this spell? SORRY.
And when even that failed to produce the goods, Jace had some good PR advice.
Just don't be a robot. Have a normal bloody conversation. Just say the word sorry, screw that up, and we'll get it right. It's not hard.
That interview was immediately shared on social media, and soon headlines about refusing to apologise were filling the void, leaving Seven's Mark Riley to ask the PM later that day.
Why is it that you so firmly believe the government doesn't need to say sorry about anything in relation to the failings of the vaccine rollout?
I think Australians just want us to get it right, Mark. And no country's got their pandemic response 100%. And I think Australians understand that.
That still wasn't the answer millions of Australians in lockdown were hoping for. But next day, at yet another press conference, the PM changed course and finally uttered the S word in an apology of sorts.
I'm certainly sorry that we haven't been able to achieve the marks that we had hoped for at the beginning of this year. Of course I am.
And that was it, the best he could do. A half-hearted sorry forced on the PM by an FM jock. As the AFR's Phil Corey observed on Friday,
when you find yourself being towed up on the Biffo and Bongo breakfast show over the rollout, you know you have a problem.
And one look at the latest polls suggests that's right. But now, to an escapist blockbuster, which the media have been lapping up.
This film has been in development for, a few years now. It's a different time, this last 5 years even.
That is Scarlett Johansson talking to 10 about her new Marvel movie, Black Widow. And here is the superstar again on 7.
It's a big movie. This is your 1,365th interview I think you've done. Are you getting a bit of Zoom fatigue?
I've had Zoom fatigue for about 1.5 years now.
Well, maybe not 1 million interviews, but she has done a lot, including this one for Who magazine.
Interview.
I have evolved as a woman.
Which comes with pics of Scarlett as a mum, and looking glam, and as her Marvel character, Natasha Romanoff.
Scarlett Johansson has grown up with her character, Natasha Romanoff. She's already portrayed the spy in 7 movies.
A whole page of Q&A with Scarlett. Not a bad get for an Aussie magazine. But the interview had no byline or source. And surprise, surprise, when you scratch the surface, you find Who's interview is not quite what it seems. Starting with this comment about what makes her say yes to a project.
A big part is who I'm collaborating with. It's so hard to make films. You want to know that you have a partner that is going to support you and that will let you in too.
Yep, that was Scarlett, but not talking to Who magazine and not talking about her latest film.
A big part is who I'm collaborating with. It's so hard to make films. You want to know that you have a partner that's going to support you and that you will let you in too.
Instead, she was on the red carpet of the Golden Globes 18 months ago for her Netflix hit Marriage Story. And it's not the only bit of the interview Who magazine has jackdawed from elsewhere. They've done the same with Scarlett outlining her aims in making Black Widow.
I don't want it to feel like, just because this character is a standalone, it's not grounded in like the history that we already know of the character.
That was Scarlett talking to MTV News 2 years ago at San Diego's Comic-Con International, not to Who magazine. Amazing, eh? Turns out this Who interview has been cobbled together and repurposed from at least 6 different sources. They've even taken a comment Scarlett made 2 years ago about director Kate Shortland and turned that into an answer about her new film, Pushing the Boundaries.
Her movies are so brutal and breathtaking and raw and truthful and like visually masterful. You know, this is what I always envisioned for the Black Widow. And that's how I feel we can elevate the genre with this film.
What Who has done here is cheap and dishonest, but that's what we've come to expect from these magazines. So why did they do it? Who said they got the interview from an unnamed freelance journalist who attended
a roundtable interview in LA for Black Widow in 2019. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, the interview was held for the film's new release date, 2021.
That sounds to us like hogwash. As to who is kidding who, it's hard to be sure. But what is clear, Who's interview is not the real deal. But now, let's return to the Olympic Village and talk about sex.
Now, do you want to stop people getting too frisky? Well, try making beds out of cardboard. Rumour has it that the beds inside the Olympic Athletes Village are actually made of cardboard to stop the athletes from having sex and spreading the coronavirus.
The Olympics has always been a hotbed for international hookups, and sex in the village has always titillated the media, with headlines like this from 4 years ago.
Rio 2016's record-breaking haul, 42 condoms per athlete.
But this year, being the COVID Games, the media seized on a new sex angle, being no sex at all. And it was all to be blamed on those cardboard beds, with which everyone was soon having fun, including ABC Sport's Instagram page.
Tokyo Games to use anti-sex cardboard beds. There's a weightlifting clean and jerk joke here somewhere.
Hilarious. So, where did this story come from? Social media, of course. Kicked off by an American athlete, Paul Gilimo, who claimed the beds were aimed at avoiding intimacy among athletes. His tweet notched up more than 27,000 likes. 2 days later, the anti-sex bed was being worked over on TikTok, with this video collecting more than 2 million views. So, with engagement like that, why wouldn't the media jump on board? With excited radio hosts all riffing on the tune.
You're into it, and then the bed collapses and you're lying in cardboard all over the floor. It's going to be a schmozzle, the whole thing. Because why do you go to the Olympics? You don't go to win a medal. You go to have sex with a Nigerian at some stage.
And they call them anti-sex beds because basically they can't withstand the weight of 2 people. It's more of an origami than a cardboard. Yeah, exactly.
So, are the beds really deliberately designed to collapse under weight, as Triple J was telling its listeners? No, they are not, as Studio 10 went on to tell viewers.
But Irish gymnast Ryan McClenaghan, he wasted no time debunking that myth by jumping on his bed to prove how strong it really is.
And here is McClenaghan testing out the bed for the team.
Apparently, they're meant to break at any sudden movements. It's fake. Fake news.
So now we can all put the anti-sex bed rumours to bed. Making them out of cardboard has nothing to do with COVID. It's about being environmentally conscious. And in fact, the decision was taken before the pandemic even began. As to the condom haul for Tokyo, we're afraid to say it is well down on Rio at only 160,000. And that's all from us tonight. Plenty more on our website, where you can read transcripts and download the programme. And don't forget Media Bites every Thursday online. But for now, until next week, goodbye.